wars have rules, and the rules of war are that, one, people must have food. If they can't get food, they must have access to humanitarian aid, and that access must be safe. And the humanitarian workers providing that aid need to be protected along with other civilians in the environment, in the conflict, like women and children and journalists. None of that is happening. That is not happening.
But do you accept this was, as the Israeli leader says, a pure accident?
Look, I don't have the intelligence to weigh in on that. I think, the investigations are ongoing, and we'll find out in the coming hours and days, what the truth of the matter really is. But regardless, humanitarian workers must be protected.
What is the feeling among aid workers where you are after this airstrike, which has killed these food aid workers?
I think, John, it certainly sent ripples through humanitarian workers here in the Gaza Strip. The immense tragedy of Gaza continues. It's hard for this place to shock you after 179 days of, utter disaster. But today's news, I think, shook people. And that's because these colleagues were meant to be safe. Not only because humanitarian workers are meant to be protected in the Gaza Strip, but because they'd coordinated their mission, they'd followed the rules according to World Central Kitchen. So this really is an unspeakable loss, and adds to the toll of the reported 32,000 Palestinians that have been killed here and 174 UN colleagues.
I wonder, will these deaths have any tangible effect on the help that volunteers, workers, NGOs, charities like you are able and willing to give now? There's clearly a risk of death. Would it affect operations? Would it affect what help is given?
In terms of how it affects our mindset, I think we understand that this is an incredibly dangerous place to operate. And as far as UNICEF is concerned, we're staying and delivering. We need the systems in place that protect humanitarian workers to function properly, and that's not happening right now. So
What do you
that's
mean by systems, by the way? What do you mean by systems? You've got assurances, no doubt, from the Israeli authorities that you will not be attacked. But what other protections are available to you?
So those systems are used all the way around the world. Humanitarian agencies operating in conflict zones have coordination systems in place so that we can notify the parties, we're going on this mission, this is what we're doing, please make sure that the route that we're taking is safe, and we receive safety assurances in return. Now, that system is clearly broken. For this to happen, that system is not working. And we've been saying this for some time, that we need a functioning humanitarian notification system in the Gaza Strip in order to protect humanitarian workers, but also the people that we serve. And I think ultimately what needs to sharpen minds here is that needlessly so many people continue to be killed because A, the humanitarian systems in place aren't working, but B, because the conflict continues with this volatility, and it's taking so many lives, including that of children.
I wonder, will this affect the willingness of workers and volunteers and their leaders, people like you, to be exposed to danger?
I would certainly hope not. I would hope that this is a call, as strong a call as possible for a ceasefire. What needs to happen now, and this tragic incident has made it very clear, that we need a ceasefire in order to do our jobs as humanitarian workers and to protect the people here that we're trying to serve. And so, there was a Security Council resolution that called for demanded a ceasefire during Ramadan. Ramadan is not over. It is not too late to implement that resolution. So rather than pulling out, I would urge us to lean in and to say, come on, enough. This cannot be acceptable. We need to stop the fighting and get the aid out.
Well, in the absence of a ceasefire, are you looking for reassurances from the Israeli military and their leaders that this will not happen again? And if you do get such reassurances, what will they be worth? I mean, if you accept, of course, that this attack was not intentional, what a promise is worth?
So we are now almost 6 months into this conflict, and this is not the first time that this has happened. We've seen before missions that we thought were going to be facilitated. Cars have been hit, UNRWA as an example. And we've also seen, the interrogation of staff, delays at crossing points, dangers from conflict. all on facilitated missions. And so this is something that we need to fix urgently, and we need those assurances that this is going to be properly remedied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, around the world, leaders have condemned this attack. Here in Britain, it's been described as outrageous, on the government and the opposition political side as well. I wonder, what do you want now? What do you expect to happen on the part of not just Israel, but Israel's supporters? What more can they do?
Well, I think it's really important for us to remember that these 7 colleagues were delivering aid, food aid, to a population that's on the brink of famine. Now, we are operating in an environment where it's very hard to get food in, it's very hard to distribute that aid, and it's really, really hard to do that safely. So what we need from the international community is, first and foremost, a ceasefire, but failing that, we need better aid access so that we can get this food in, flood the Gaza Strip with aid, and help this, this population that's starving. And the role that the international community can play is one, facilitating the aid that's been delivered by ships and by air, but also trying to get more land routes open so that we can really get more aid in, and encouraging the parties to the conflict to allow humanitarian workers to do that safely.
Right. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu, you'll know, he said things like this happen in war, and they would see to ensure it never happens again. Do you accept that assurance and that commitment in good faith?
Even wars have rules, and the rules of war are that, one, people must have food. If they can't get food, they must have access to humanitarian aid, and that access must be safe. And the humanitarian workers providing that aid need to be protected along with other civilians in the environment, in the conflict, like women and children and journalists. None of that is happening. That is not happening.
But do you accept this was, as the Israeli leader says, a pure accident?
Look, I don't have the intelligence to weigh in on that. I think, the investigations are ongoing, and we'll find out in the coming hours and days, what the truth of the matter really is. But regardless, humanitarian workers must be protected.
Tessa, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.